In South Dakota, and we are coming up here on the B and Eldon Schelske farm, which is located 1.5 miles north of Olivet in Hutchinson County, Wittenberg Township, in South Dakota.
Okay, we are approaching the home place from the south. And the first field you see here with the tractor moving is Dad out in the tractor, and he is disking down some weeds that he don't want to shed their seed on the ground. And this portion of our land is always known as our calving pasture. Every year we put our cows out here, and that's where they give birth to the new set of calves. And from this pasture, then they are transferred up to the summer pasture on our land 4 miles north. Cows are relaxing here in the nice warm sunshine. And Grandpa's in the tractor, and he's going down to the other end of the field with a disc. He's disking down some weeds that he doesn't want to shed their seed.
The date today is July 21st, 1995. These trees here in this pasture have a special memory to us kids. We used to ride our horses down here. And Randy and Lana and Jolynn, we would ride our horses down here, and we'd pretend that we were on a camp out. And we'd camp under these big trees here, and we'd catch grasshoppers, and we had a lot of fun out here riding our horses. And we would play in this little ravine here. A lot of times there was water running through this creek. And
this ravine is a ditch that runs clear from 4 miles north, and the water after a big rain runs down through this ditch, and sometimes it backs up that most of this pasture is underwater. But at the present time it's dried out, and the water is all gone. It contains a quarter of land. It's 160 acres, and it's the legal description of it is the northwest quarter of section 3598 range, or township, I'm sorry, and 58 range, which is Wittenberg Township. We totally own 320 acres, I believe. We own this 160 acres, 120 acres 4 miles north, and an 80-acre field a mile and a half west. Ready? Mm-hmm. That little pasture in front of the house is known as our sheep pasture. We always buy a few sheep in the spring to run in the grove and this sheep pasture to keep the weeds down and to keep it mowed nice for us.
And this section here has also been known to be a very good softball diamond.
Yeah.
And that's where our family has had many softball games. In fact, I believe it's where Grandma Leona broke her thumb playing softball a couple years ago.
We're approaching the driveway now, going into the farm, and you can see the barn has just been newly repaired after having a fire early last spring caused by an electrical short. And the repair crew just finished repairing it a couple days ago, so you can see it has not been repainted as of yet. And there's the feedlots with our fattening cattle in there. We feed cattle up to, and you see the big corn cribs in view. Every fall we pick corn with the corn picker and pick it on the ear, and we bend it in those big corn cribs, and from there we grind it out, grind it into feed that we feed our fat cattle. And you can see Grandpa's driving around with his tractor here, and that's how we store most of the corn that we don't combine and put in the bin, and it's used for feed. There's Grandpa in his big tractor. He's pulling a disc.
I remember as a kid was always to run with him when he was going in and out of these fences with his tractors and opening the gates. That was always our job. And at one time they had a white German Shepherd dog that was really good with helping Grandpa with chores, and when he would open up the gate here, the dog would sit and watch and make sure the cattle didn't get out while the gate was left down.
This is my garden spot, and this year it's kind of a poor little spot because we had too much rain and we couldn't work up the ground. But usually that whole garden was full of plants, and we've harvested many jars of canned food from this garden over the many years we've lived here. Now we approach the barn.
Yes, and there's some cats. There's always lots of cats on this farm, and there's the farm dog, Stubber. How do you get that name?
Because his tail is short, stubby. The inside of the big barn, and this barn has held a lot of memories in all these years. For 20 years, we milked a bunch of cows in this barn. And we would raise, the cows would come in and form all along the stanchions there. And Lana and Randy and Dad and I used to milk all these cows. And a lot of the time it was Lana and I who milked the cows while Randy and Dad did other farm chores.
But how many cows did you milk at a time?
Oh, probably, it varied, 10, 15, sometimes 20. Never more than that. And the stalls on the other side held the baby calves where we'd feed with a bottle and pails. A boarded off portion of the barn held the ground feed, where we would fill it through the window, and then every night we'd put each cow's portion of ground feed in their particular spot, and they always had their own particular spot. They always went in the same place every time. They picked their spot and they always kept it.
This is in the hay loft of the barn, and this door here was where all the hay and straw bales would come in. They would put a loader of some type out there, and the bales would come up the belt, and then they would stack them up here in the hay loft into big. This was one of the favorite play places for the kids. We would come up here and we would make forts and tunnels out of the bales, and Randy liked to come up here with his BB gun and practice on the pigeons and shoot down some meals for the cats. But as you can see, this is a really big hay loft, and at one time just stored lots and lots of hay and straw and things for the animals. And then we would throw down a bale of hay through these holes in the floor here, down below. That would often be our chore too. Mom or Dad would say to the kids, run up and throw down a couple bales of hay, and that's where they would go down to the bottom level then to feed the cattle, the cows and the babies down below.
Side of the big barn, and we're looking upward at the silo, big tall white Hanson silo that the men every fall fill it clear to the top with chopped corn. And that is a good winter feed supply for the fat cattle in the lot. Automatic unloader inside of the silo that when you throw a switch, it automatically goes around and picks up a layer of silage and throws it down that long tube that you see right to the west of that white silo, and it throws it down into a feeder in that little shed, and from there it goes into long tubes out into the feeding trough. It's all automatic. Machinery right there is called a silage blower, and you put that feeder down and you back the wagons up to that feeder and you load the chopped corn into that, and it blows it up that long skinny pipe and blows it right into the silo. This is the east side of the silo, and it shows the feeding area where the tube pushes the silage out, and the cattle come up here and eat from both sides. And then over to the north you see the automatic water where the cattle drink, and that's the old Used to be a granary years ago when we first bought this place, and now it's only shelter for the fat cattle. And moving to the east, this used to be the old chicken house on this farm. But we used to have feeder pigs in there, and now the sheep go in there for shade and shelter.
And is that where the eggs were collected?
That's where the chickens used to be, and that's where we go to gather the eggs.
I remember a big tank over here where you've got the electric or the automatic water feeder now, and that was our summer swimming pool many times. A big wood tank right there.
Now we're looking across to the east side of the farm where a field of corn is growing. And it hasn't tasseled yet, it's just in the early stages of development. We grow corn, soybeans, oats, and wheat on this farm, and have for ever since we've lived here. And here's where we store our hay for winter use. They bring it in from the fields and store it here, and then pick it up and feed it to the cattle during the winter when the weather is bad. Inside of the barn now, and as we approach from the east looking west, you can see where the old milk house used to be. And they just tore the front of this out now as they repaired the fire damage of the barn. And we're not going to replace the door and the wall because we don't use it for a milk house anymore. But it once had a linoleum on the floor. It had a big milk cooler in there, and brackets on the wall where our milking machines all hung, and sinks where we washed the buckets out every day. And it was all painted white, and it was really a nice little milk house when we used to milk years ago.
And then how often would the milk truck come and collect from
Twice a week. Twice a week he'd come, and every time the milkman would come, the kids would, his name was Steve Schneider from Scotland. And whenever the kids would see him driving the yard, they would all race out here because he would always give them gum and suckers and things.
Yeah, he was so nice. He always talked to us and teased us. That was fun. Look forward to the milkman coming.
And then we'd order cream and butter, and then they'd always carry it to the house for me. Of our fat cattle for this year, 1995, every year we wean the calves in the fall. And then they're put in this lot where they're fattened out to 1,100 and 1,200 pounds. That was always Grandpa's pride and joy. And how many we had in this lot depended on how many cows we ran that year. It would be like, the highest would be like 50 head, and now we're down to about 30. Because we've been selling old cows off in the last few years.
And they were fed, what, twice a day?
Oh, they're on a self-feeder. They just fill the self-feeder with ground corn, and they can eat as much as they want, whenever they want.
But back when we had to scoop it by hand, didn't we come out here twice a day and scoop from this wagon here into the feeders?
That's when you started out. You can't let them overeat at first. You have to ration their feed supply so much, otherwise they'd overeat and get sick. Okay, Dad and I bought this farm in April of 1962. We had lived on a rented farm about 4 miles north of here when we heard that this farm was for sale. And I always admired the looks of this house and this barn. I always loved the looks of it from a little girl on when I lived in the Wittenberg community and grew up there. And I always admired the looks of this house. So when it was for sale, we thought, gee, wouldn't it be nice to have this place? So we went and talked to Clemmys, who own it, and we made a deal to buy it on a contract for deed. Like I said, in April of 1962. But this farm was in an awful mess. The house was in terrible condition. There was junk and stuff laying all over the barns, and the fences were all poor. We put a lot of effort into it. Take a picture, Grandpa.
Okay, go on.
See, Grandpa's in front of the house. He's going to go fill his water jug now. He's going to go out and do some disking in the fields. And okay, so we made the deal to buy this farm for $150 an acre. This consisted of 160 acres, and a total of $24,000 we paid for this place. And we bought it in the spring in April of 1962, and we worked the ground and worked on the buildings, on the fences, all summer long that year. We had a hired man, Jappy Gosser, helped us, and we tore out all the fences and rebuilt them all. and cleaned the whole place up, the grove, around all the buildings, and worked in the house all summer long that year. And we moved in on September 12th, 1962. Randy was 11 years old, Lana was 10 years old, Jolynn was age 3, and Julie was not born yet. She was born in 1965, 3 years later. Facing east on the farm, the grain bins. This is a granary that we bought and had moved in and put it on blocks. And then we fill it with grain. To the north are 2 Balin grain bins that were installed on concrete slabs on the farm. Sitting in front of it is a grinder mixer that we use to grind up all the feed that the cattle eat. Going north, we see a little feed shed. Looking into the grove, that's where the sheep run all summer long. We see Dad's tractor and cultivator there. He just came in from cultivating corn last evening. Then it's the garage and the shop. We see the fuel barrels standing there. One holds diesel fuel and one holds gasoline.
I think we missed the little duck building there. Remember the little triangle building?
Oh, okay. That little triangle building is where we used to raise baby ducks and little geese years ago, but I don't do that anymore.
Now there was a white round building located about right there.
That was a brooder house. That's where we raised our chickens, baby chicks.
And every May, was it May, you would go and get the baby chicks?
Uh-huh.
How many?
300.
And then raise them, and then you'd butcher them when? August?
Yep, about in August we'd butcher 300 broilers and sell them.
And that I remember being a full family event.
Yep.
The night before we would sneak out in the dark and catch them.
Yep.
And they would sit on the fence lines and things over here, and then we trap them in this little white building that used to sit right there. And then the next day at the break of dawn it would begin. And
chicken butchering days, sometimes Grandma would come out and help, and Aunt Barbara would come out, and the kids, and we'd all be a family affair. But later on in years, I had an electric chicken plucker built, which was really a time saver. I would clean 25 alone with that chicken plucker. I would scald them and run them through those round wheels with rubber fingers on it. Would just tear the feathers right off, and it would make my work so much easier. And I always did that, set up in that garage or that shop there to do my chicken cleaning. Pickup, that's his right arm man. He can't live without that pickup. And standing right in front is Nicker, our little dog who lives with us. She's a member of our family completely. Wherever we go, she goes.
Call her name.
Nicky! Hi, Nick! Hi, Nick!
Okay. And there's the clothesline. Do you use that still?
Oh, I do, but not as much as I used to, and it's much smaller. Dad took a lot of it down, and because it was falling down, and he never put it up again.
How many rows did you have when you had 4 kids at home?
8
rows
lines.
of
I have 8 rows full of clothes every week, if not twice a week.
Okay, and
then we see our camper there that we still like to go camping with, enjoy taking to the lake and to the fair. Right in front of it is my old reliable station wagon I've had for many years and has served me well, and I just really like that little wagon. Then is a little portable car shed that we had put up here just a year or so ago, which houses my new car, 1991 Dodge Monaco that I bought 2 years ago. And then you see the house, the big white family home that we've lived in for 33 years.
And Julie was born, and the family lived in this home.
Yep.
This is the home where Julie was born.
That's the only home Julie ever knew.
Uh-huh.
Consists of 3 big rooms upstairs with walk-in closets. And the downstairs has a big 22-foot kitchen, a small bedroom, bathroom, nice-sized dining room, and a smaller living room.
That little patio on the top was our sunbathing terrace.
Oh yes, the girls used to take a quilt out there and they would sunbathe up there in that open porch. But we've always had trouble with that. It always likes to leak rain in there.
Well, here's the main entrance into the home. This is where we come in and out, and you'll see where she's got her flower box and flowers that Mom has always planted out front here.
Isn't that a big, majestic old house?
Yeah, it is. A nice house.
kitchen of the farmhouse, and we're looking toward the east into the dinette area. When we first bought this farm, that dinette area consisted of two little rooms. One was called a cloakroom and one was called the cookroom. The cloakroom housed their jackets and coats as they came in from the south door. And the other little room to the north, they had their stove and refrigerator in there. And that was all. And this part of the big part of the kitchen had double windows in the south. And it was so small that we couldn't get our family around the table. So we tore out the walls of those two little rooms, the cloakroom and the cookroom, and we made a dinette area which made the kitchen 22 feet long, which gave us a lot of extra room for our family. Kitchen were built by Eldon's brother Willard when he was in a shop program at Southern State College in Springfield. He built those as a carpenter project. And I was so excited and so thrilled to get those cupboards. They are now about 35 years old, because we had those up in the rented farm yet before we moved down here. This big line of cupboards. And the other cupboards above the stove and refrigerator were built by Edwin Auk some years later. But he matched the wood up pretty good, and I think it looks good. Room of the farmhouse, and this has been the scene of many, many holiday and birthday dinners for 33 years. We pulled this table out to its full width, which would seat 10, and also set the kitchen table, and we'd have plenty seating space for everyone. From the dining room is the living room portion of the house. When we first moved here, there was a window to the north where the heirloom clock is now. That was a window. And so we closed that up and we paneled over it, and Grandpa Ray did the work. And I like it so much better.
Tell me about the clock.
The clock above the couch is the Walter family heirloom clock. It's a clock that is 100 years old. It was given to me by Aunt Barbara before she passed away. She found the pieces of this clock up in her folks' attic, all in pieces. And she picked up all the pieces and took it down to Cheddar Colony to a colony man named Dave, and he assembled and refinished and reassembled the clock, and it's been working ever since. And I've had it since 1969.
The infamous easy chairs where Bea and Eldon spend their evenings relaxing. Those are definitely a no-no to everyone else in the family. They have their names marked on them, and that's their seats right there.
Toward the south from the living room now, you'll see what we call colonnades. They were built into this house at the time it was built, and still consist of the same varnished wood they had when it was built in the 1930s. On one side there is a little china closet in one side of the colonnade. On the other side there's a writing desk and a bookcase. And they are in their same original condition as when the house was built. Has been for all these years, and it's small in size, but I tell you what, with a little ingenuity, we even had cribs in there when Julie was a baby. She slept down here with us for 2 years, even in a crib in this tiny little bedroom. You make do with what you have if you have to do it. Room. When we first moved here, there was nothing in there but just an empty room. And so we converted it into the bathroom before we ever moved in.
Did they not have a bathroom in this home when you bought it?
No.
Just outhouse.
That's right.
So you had to add the plumbing and everything.
Mm-hmm. We had to dig a hole for the septic tank and put all the plumbing in. The plumbing was all done by Jake Lukens from Menno, South Dakota.
All that leads from the living room to the bathroom door and the bedroom door, and then goes up to the door here, which leads upstairs, where the kids always slept upstairs in the 3 bedrooms up there.
To the steps going upstairs, and it's got this wood railing clear around the steps with a gate that opens and shuts, which we always kept shut to keep the little ones from falling down the stairs.
Boy, to put this woodwork in a home today would just cost a fortune. Look at how thick it is and nice and sturdy.
The wood in this house is very, very strong. I have found over the years that if you're trying to drive a nail in this wood, you'll bend the nail before you can make a hole in the wood. You know, upstairs. When we first moved here, the walls in this hallway were still unpainted plaster from when the house was built. It had never been painted. There were different streaks of paint that they tried out to see what color they'd prefer, but it was never completed. So this is the first, we put the first coat of paint on this hallway.
Huh.
In this house in 1962, and it was built in the 1930s.
Did they not use the upstairs?
Oh, I think they did, but they never painted the hallway for some reason. Stairs, and now we have this storeroom that's been a very handy place to put in everything we didn't know what else to do with. Stick it in the storeroom and shut the door. And you're seeing it now at one of its better moments.
Well, there's a lot of hidden treasures in there to play with.
And now we're entering, we call the pink and red room. This was the room that Jolene and Julie had when, it was originally Jolene's room, and when Julie became 2 years old, she joined her up in this room. And then when Jolene became a teenager and moved to the blue room, which was vacated by Lana, then this became known as Julie's room.
Yeah, I see where they left their mark here. Wrote their names on the wall, to, I guess, to clean the room, huh?
Mm-hmm. Focus down on the floor. Lana and I laid that rug on the floor when Carrie was just a baby. She was sitting in an infant seat on the floor, and it was a hot, sunny day, and we were sweating and miserable, and Carrie was fussing, but we managed to get that carpet laid. Bedroom, which has always been known as Randy's room. This was his room from age 11 to when he moved out at age 27.
And when the grandkids come and visit, this is where the boys always want to sleep.
Yep,
This has always been the boys' room, huh?
yep, always the boys' room. And now is an old antique chair that we got from Uncle John's house on the day of his sale. Approaching the west room upstairs, which was first known as Lana's room, which was done in cream and green at the time. And that was Lana's room until she was married and moved to her own home. And then when she moved out, Jolene took over the room. And it was Joe's room until she moved to Omaha and got her own place. Back outside in front of the house again, facing north. And to give a little history of this place, it was built back in the 1930s by Albert and Daisy Gillette. And they built this big house and the great big barn and other buildings, and then during the 30s, the Depression times, when it's such hard times in the land, they lost this farm. They couldn't pay the mortgage, and they lost this farm to an insurance company. And an insurance company then, in turn, sold this farm to Elmer and Ella Clemmy for a sum of $5,000. And they lived on it, I don't really know how many years it was, and until they retired and moved to Yankton, and they sold it to us in 1962. This house has many memories for us. In this house, we raised our 4 children, and it has many happy memories of little feet going up and down the steps and in and out and raising a happy, healthy family. And then as they became teenagers, I can still remember 2 stereo systems blaring upstairs that the whole house would just be vibrating with the music. And now the grandchildren are enjoying this house as much as we've enjoyed it all over the years.
This is the wedding picture of Bea and Eldon Schelske, the young couple that moved onto this farm. They were married 12 years when they purchased this farm and moved over here. These are the faces of the young babies. They grew up in this home. Randy and Lana, Jolynn, and Julie. Julie was born in this house. These are the faces of the young children that filled this house with the running footsteps and laughter and songs and games. The teenagers, as they grew up, that filled this house with all of their friends, had lots of entertaining here and parties here that ran in and out of these doors at all hours of the day and night.